will be recorded. And yeah, as Tracy also mentioned, feel free to pop in and ask questions. And during, we really love when it's like a two-way communication here. So thank you again, Tracy, for joining us, and the floor is yours.
It's an absolute pleasure. So for those who have joined and that doesn't know me, I do love the engagement and I like it to be dynamic and interactive. So my head inside's very, very busy. Okay, there's not a lot that can disturb my train of thought, because there is no train of thought. Okay, it's like a box of marbles. So I'm quite happy for someone to just stick their hand up, and if I don't see you, just speak up. But and I'll. It's probably easier to use the meeting chat, just to pop a message and then we can have a chat if it's a good time to do so. But I'll definitely leave some time afterwards as well. Recently in my webinars and my YouTube videos, I've had to put a disclaimer in because I speak very fast. So at the moment I'm speaking slower because I work night shift, believe it or not. I've not slept much, so I'm actually tired and slow. But remember that if this is recorded, you can slow me down even more afterwards. So I'd rather just go fast and get more into the session. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Valo, and all my friends. I miss you so much. And then everyone that is on the call, and even those that will be watching it afterwards, because of course you can, because it's going to be recorded. So my pleasure today is to talk about very, very important topics as always, and that's adoption, change management, and all of these important things. It's a huge topic, and I definitely have different opinions when it comes to to adoption, but I do believe that that there's valid reasons for those. So for those who doesn't know me, I think this is my statement that I always make, is that I definitely don't know everything, but I can promise you I know everyone that does. And that's the magic of community for sure. That's the thing that just makes everything incredible for us. So remember that. Don't be so hard on yourself. You definitely don't need to know everything. Don't expect to know everything. I wasted years and broke my self-esteem because I felt I had to figure everything out, but you don't. You just connect. Community is the most amazing thing ever. So just connect to the right people and you'll always have the right answers. So don't be afraid to ask. Reach out to us afterwards as well. And that's how we build these amazing things. So these are the topics or areas that I want to cover in the session. And I'm going to look at some quick wins. And by that, I mean, what are the things that can get traction for you faster? I want to talk about the ROI of Microsoft 365. We're going to touch on change management. That's always been one of those bitter pills to swallow. Change management used to be in the same vocabulary as governance and tax and policing. It's that thing that makes everyone afraid. And I think it's because we might not have enough knowledge. I think we're afraid of the unknown, and it shouldn't be an unknown. It's much easier than you think it is if you equip yourself with the knowledge and you surround yourself with the people that can help you. I always end my sessions with how to stay up to date. I think it's the most valuable thing that I can pass on to people, is to teach them to fish for themselves. I'm not here to feed you. I'm here to give you a fishing rod and show you the amazing lakes around the world and help you to go fishing for yourself. And then, of course, in closing, whatever thoughts have come up, and if there's any questions, we can definitely discuss that. So let's take a look at the quick wins. Now, as mentioned, when I talk about quick wins, everyone grabs the big things first. If I think Microsoft 365, the first thing that comes to mind is Microsoft Teams most of the time, okay? So, and also for every person, there could be different quick wins. If I just think the Power Platform, some people might say that Power BI is the first thing. What I do want to remind you of is, do not forget how important, and I'm going to say Office Pro Plus now. I'll tell you later, there's been a name change. But Office Pro Plus is unbelievably important because most of your users has used it for years. They're comfortable with it. They've adopted it already. So imagine if you can show them what all the cool new things is just in Office Pro Plus or Microsoft 365 apps. And that will make them kind of accept it easier because it's not such a big jump. So do not throw away the business critical value of Office Pro Plus. There's people that spends most of their lives just in that areas: Excel, Word, PowerPoint, of course, still Outlook as well. So please put focus on those areas as well. This is just a little infographic that I always do. And I mean, I can add loads and loads. In the last 7-8 years, there's been incredible features that were released, but those are some of my favorites that I always make sure that everyone knows is available in the new Office version that's part of Microsoft 365. There's incredible time-saving options in there or features. If I just think dictation is a mind-blowing feature for most people, then of course the new icons, the cutout people, the stickers that you can insert, there's just incredible. The speak cells, the ideas in Excel, and being able to ask it questions, ask your data questions in natural language. I mean, that is mind-blowing. I never ever thought that would be possible for someone like me just working in Office. So lots of cool things in Office. I want you to take a step back and go, wait a minute, let's revisit what we already have and make sure that our employees are aware of how those things already change their lives before we add all those new glittery things. Okay, make sure that you touch base on how Office Pro Plus or Microsoft 365 apps has changed. Now, of course, if I think of a company taking on Microsoft 365, and as mentioned, the first thing that they normally go, if I look at this image, is your Outlook is going to be Exchange Online. You have SharePoint in there, you have OneDrive, and you have Teams. Now, as I mentioned, the Office Pro Plus side is very, very important for me. After that, I normally start looking at things like the OneNote, bringing in Planner, absolutely Yammer as well, which is a much more comfortable place to start having discussions about adoption, which is broader across the company. My Stream, my Forms, my Sway is such incredible productivity tools for me. And I'm not saying that should be your logical staging, but for me, that's normally easier to kind of stage it in like that. I'm not limiting people not to use things. I'm purely talking about the way that we communicate and we kind of expose people to these things. And then, of course, let me just minimize that little window, the Power Platform. Again, I'm not saying that should be last, but if I think of it, the maturity of the users and the training that they need as well, that normally starts coming in as people have adopted the other technologies as well. It's also important for me to make sure that the other technologies are in place when you start investing seriously in the Power Platform, because the places where content is hosted, where they get their data from, it's important that that's stable as well, and that users know that they can grab data from Teams, from SharePoint, from their OneDrive, etc. And if all of those are in place first, then the Power Platform is just much easier to adopt. This is a very hectic image that I normally share, which I think scares people because there's a lot of information on that image. Now, if I think of what these apps and services mean to my employees and to the world, for me, it's important when it comes to digital literacy, because we don't adopt apps purely for the fact of adopting apps. I think we did enough of that in the past. We were forced to use SharePoint because the CEO's friend played golf with someone who uses SharePoint, and that's how we adopted technology in the past. But in the future, I want us to think about the need behind us. I want us to think of why it is that these apps and services can help people, and not the fact that we want them to use it. Just because you've bought the license doesn't mean you should force people to use it. If they don't see the need for it, it's going to be difficult. So a very good approach is to look at digital literacy and to look at how those apps and services can help people become digital citizens. And that's something that's incredibly important in this environment of ours, and especially now in these interesting times that we find ourselves in. So if I then look at Microsoft Teams, now for me, Teams is one of those logical first things that I do start looking at because it brings a lot of apps and services together. Again, this is a very difficult infographic, of course. And I want you to understand that if people understand the purpose of something, if they understand that this is an environment that brings a lot of things together, then it makes things easier. I think, and it's definitely something that Paul mentioned in his session before me as well, but it's definitely not supposed to, everything's not supposed to do everything. I mean, Yammer is not supposed to do everything. Teams is not supposed to do everything. It's about understanding what the strength is of the different apps, and then understanding that Teams can bring it together for you. So Teams doesn't have to be the perfect quiz tool. It doesn't have to be the place where you store your videos. But using Teams as that hub or as that platform that brings it all together is definitely something that I think will help if people understand that. So a very busy infographic, but as you start plugging in those different tools and services, people actually understand better how these can be used. So of course, I don't have to go into too much detail. I'll just cover some of it. But Teams, of course, brings my storage together for me. And in the background, of course, I have SharePoint Online. I can see my OneDrive files there as well, so my cloud storage. Some companies allow you to see your other cloud storage as well, for example, Dropbox, etc. Then, of course, I have the ability to engage through Outlook as well with Teams, so by sending emails to Teams, etc. Yammer, I definitely add Yammer to my Teams. And a very valid question that was asked of Paul in the previous session was kind of that Teams versus Yammer thing. And I fully agree that for me, it's never been the one versus the other. For me, it's been both, and you use them when it suits you best. So for me, Microsoft Teams is also a very much work environment, very focused, specific groups, and Yammer broadens the topic for me. So I add Yammer to my Teams to kind of add that extra layer of more transparent communications or more social communications. I've got the Skype for Business icon there. You might say, what's that doing there? But I've got Skype for Business there to remind you that the call and chat and conversations post functions inside of Teams was what we had before Skype for Business. So that's also represented inside of my Teams environment. I still have the Kaizala icon there as well. I've had some fun with Kaizala, so we'll see what happens in the future around Kaizala, but the instant messaging tool. I've written some great workflows and messed around with Kaizala. Then at the top there, you'll see that there's productivity. So of course, my OneNote, my planners are one of the first things that I always add to my Teams to allow people to be more productive in meetings and in their workplaces. I can of course bring the Power Platform in as well. So Power Automate, bringing Power Apps in as tabs, for example, and even adding Power BI reports as tabs. I'm a very big fan of Forms and Microsoft Stream and Sway, and very, very often I add them as tabs inside of my Teams, of course, to help people achieve more and collaborate better and communicate better and share content. Delve and the WhoBot. So if I just think of the WhoBot, so many people that I meet has not used the WhoBot. It's the craziest thing ever. And that's just the coolest thing for me, especially in big companies. So by going to the WhoBot and asking who this person is or who they report to, but as you start using the technology, you can even ask the WhoBot things like, who did I message about this specific thing? Or who did I have a meeting with about that? And imagine how this whole information platform and AI and machine learning can help you achieve more every single day. I bring other tools into Teams as well, of course, using the browser tabs and the website tabs. And then, of course, Office Pro Plus or Microsoft 365 apps. The whiteboard's now available. You can surface PDFs inside of your Teams as well. So incredible co-authoring functionality with most of those apps and services. Okay, so in that same trend, I'm going to just take a quick look at SharePoint. And SharePoint does exactly the same for me from the other side. It supplies the same platform for me as what Teams does, give or take a couple of the apps and services. But again, it's a perfect hub to bring a lot of things together. And there's a good place for everything all the time. Teams doesn't replace SharePoint. I don't think people must make the mistake to even think that. There's places where you just work through Teams, but there's also places where SharePoint works as a standalone. And I definitely think of things like intranets, your communication sites. I still surface them through Teams. I like to be able to navigate to all the content that I use and the tools that I utilize through Microsoft Teams. But SharePoint as well. Again, SharePoint doesn't do everything, but it brings everything together. If I think years ago, I shouldn't say that, that's going to make me sound so old. But years ago, absolutely, let's say SharePoint 2013, we used to have certain apps that we could add. So we could add the announcements app, and we could add a custom list, or we can have tasks, and we had calendars, and we had the discussion board. And the interesting thing is that a lot of those apps and services kind of became the apps and services of Microsoft 365. And now you can plug and play and bring everything together as you do want to use them. So SharePoint as well, very, very important to bring together all those apps and services that's important to you. I surface Microsoft Sways on my SharePoint pages. I bring in Forms. Of course, we bring in Yammer as well. You can even bring in YouTube. Again, bringing in your Power Automate in the background to make things happen for you, your Power Apps as well as your Power BI. So such an incredible tool. And it's really gone leaps and bounds in the last couple of years of what's possible. these days, and I think that's just such an incredible thing. I always believe that Microsoft 365 adds extra to ordinary, and it gives us the ability to be extraordinary. We can do things now in apps and services that I was never able to do before because I'm not a developer, and that's the incredible magic of Microsoft 365. Now, of course, I've touched on the Power Platform, and I think I'm kind of gradually just working through what I think your roadmaps are, how you can approach these things. So the Power Platform, and the word power is in there because it's quite a powerful thing. I don't think it's as easy to adopt for everyone as they like to make it in the advertisements. So it's not necessarily a drag and drop thing for end users. I do think it takes time and some training for people to get used to this environment and to really utilize it well. But again, you do not have to be some crazy developer to be able to use these tools. With sufficient training and support and assistance, you can do incredible things in your company, and the ROI that comes from these are just absolutely amazing. So definitely keep an eye out on the Power Platform. Don't jump into that immediately. Get your ducks in a row with all the other apps and services first. But incredible platform that can really help your company achieve more, save lots of time and money, and help you to replace those mundane tasks that we simply don't have time for anymore. So keep your lookout for the Power Platform as well. So now, if I think of how do we fast track this, there's just so many apps and services, and just the last couple of slides, I've shared so much information with you. I mean, how does a person take the first step? Where do you get started? I mean, how do you expose people to things? So I'm definitely, I'm like Oprah Winfrey when it comes to Microsoft 365. I believe everyone should get everything, okay? So I'm that dangerous person you don't necessarily want in your environment. But if I do look at the apps and services, for me, it's a good thing to look at the core services that everyone does need. And for me, the core services is a lot of collaboration. So that would be content and communication. So the first things I normally focus on is content and communication type of apps and services. And of course, that is my Teams, my SharePoint, my Yammer, and my OneDrive. And once I start looking at putting those bases in place, I'll start introducing people to the productivity apps that can be added as well. So Forms, Streams, Sway, and of course the Power Platform. I've got my Office Pro Plus or M365 apps on the left-hand side because I believe that that's the basis. And again, I do believe that that's the first thing that needs to be addressed, is that people understand what the new features are and how it can make them better before you get to adding new apps and services or start training them on more complex technologies. So I definitely focus on the core first. I look at collaboration, and I focus on the content and delivery and communication delivery tools. Of course, you can then start slotting in your forms for surveys, your sways for dynamic content, your stream. And I always include OneNote and Planner as part of my team's training to make sure that people are equipped to be able to do those things. And before I leave this slide, I just, I don't know why I'm thinking of this now, but maybe it's a message that you need to hear. I'm just looking at the OneDrive icon there, and I can't tell you how many companies I've been involved in that sent out an email to launch OneDrive. So hi everyone, hi there. It's Monday, you're on OneDrive, have a nice day. Here's a link to a video you can go watch. And then companies don't understand why they've got data breaches or why there's risk, or they get flagged, or they've got GDPR problems because people didn't get training. And I'm just talking about OneDrive as an example. You've got to compare apples to apples, people. OneDrive is not the next step up from a file share. OneDrive is like the Ferrari to the bicycle we had before, and you really need to train people to use it well, to use it responsibly, and to understand the features and how sharing works and how protecting their content works. You can't launch that with an email, and OneDrive's the smallest part of that middle pillar. So don't think that you don't need to train people on OneDrive, because OneDrive's unbelievably important. But if we invest now and we train them right, then I promise you whatever we do going forward is going to be absolutely worth it. So that brings me to ROI. I definitely see our sessions quite quiet. I know that America is still sleeping, if I'm correct. Let's see what the time is. It's 12 for me, so I think it's like 4 o'clock. Is that a question? You're welcome to speak up, or is that someone from America being awake? Hello?
Hi, Tracy.
Hello.
It's Reagan from Switzerland.
Hi, Reagan.
I just wanted to mention about that. I actually can't seem to post in the chat, so that might be why it's a bit quiet. It looks like this is a channel meeting. So.
Okay. You're welcome to speak up, but yeah, do you have a question? Do you have some feedback?
No, eventually when you get to the change management one, I do have a question about the resistance that we're facing in the COVID environment with everybody.
Absolutely. So stick your hand up, or you know what, just unmute yourself. I'm comfortable like that. If I'm going to ask you to give me a minute or two and I'll get back to it later, then we can do that. But please just speak up. You're more than welcome to. And nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks.
Cool. So ROI, I think the first thing when it comes to ROI people is the benefit that you have from having employees that are happy. And a lot of companies don't focus on that at all. The biggest expense you can have is unhappy employees. I mean, people that are miserable make other people miserable. They do less. So they're not delivering their 8 hours a day. They're delivering 4 hours a day, which is not good productivity anyway. They speak bad to other people. They speak bad about the company. They leave the company. They need to be replaced. So your biggest cost when it comes expense-wise to not doing this right is unhappy people. That's just the worst thing you can ever do. Unhappy people are not innovative. They're not creative. They don't come up with cool ideas of how to make things better. So believe me, investing in your employees, and when I say investing, I'm of course talking about training. I mean, there's nothing else that I'm talking about. You think that it's money that makes people happy? You might be mistaken. It's normally not the first priority that people have when it comes to happiness. Being enabled, having the right tools to do your job, knowing what is expected from you, so having boundaries as well as having freedom, having guidelines, understanding things, having transparency is what makes people happy and makes people stay in companies. Money is an afterfact. So for me, the ROI of doing things right from the start, long before I get to the technology, is happy people. I definitely think happy people can fix a lot of things. So don't forget the importance of your employees' happiness. This is an example that I always use when it comes to ROI, is that we tend to, as humans, want to go for those big things. So when especially IT, it's a tech thing, I think. So if I speak to people about the ROI of Microsoft 365, the first things that gets grabbed is Power BI, building that onboarding solution with Power Automate, doing the leave application. And I'm like, I'm all good for that, okay? But don't forget about the small things that adds gazillions of ROI. There's so many small things that can add value to every single person in the company. When I do Microsoft 365 training, I don't go in depth into Power Automate. I think that's above my fireplace. But I do train users to use the basic templates for themselves. As they build maturity, they can then go and help their team, and they can then help their company, because it's a maturity and experience level thing. But if I just look at this specific template that's in Power Automate, so save Office 365 email attachments to OneDrive for Business or SharePoint, which is Teams, so it could be one of the two. Everyone's getting attachments on emails that they're saving somewhere and then uploading somewhere. This is the type of template that would be easier enough for everyone to build for themselves. If you make a small little recording and put it somewhere, step by step, anyone will be able to use this template. And this is the type of thing that saves so much time and money in the company. So please, please, please do not forget the small things. It's the small things that adds up. Don't spend so much time looking at that big thing that is the like game changer, because sometimes we get so stuck on that we don't move forward. So please concentrate on the small things as well. Make sure that you have people that runs around and helps people to improve their own environments first, because that's where the happiness also comes from, and that's where the adoption also comes from. If you touch the environment that the person works in every day and you help him solve a solution or solve a problem that he struggles with every day, you are going to get adoption. So please look at those templates absolutely and for sure as well. Now this article, percentages and money is a tricky thing. I mean, we can put all these percentages up on a page and it's different for every company. But this is research that I've been doing for years, actually. Before this article came out, Forrester actually published this article. So for years, I've been hammering on about digital literacy. I think if people see me, they think digital literacy. I've been that person at conferences moaning about it and saying it's important, and no one wanted to believe me. Because for years, I've said that people are not digitally literate. They're not PC literate, never mind digitally literate, and it's not their fault because we've never trained them right. So if you've not trained people right in the basics, how can we expect them to adopt advanced technologies? It's not going to happen. But I started doing research, and I started doing calculations for companies on how much money is lost because we're not productive. So how much money is lost because people are not PC or digitally literate. And again, it's just numbers. There's no way I can come up with perfect numbers, but you can definitely come up with a bit of a summary. And when this article got published, I was so happy because it was very, very similar to the type of research and numbers that I came up with and the time that is lost because people are not productive. So now, of course, teams can help us do more of this. Now, the one number that I got stuck on in there, and remember, we're talking about the extreme, okay? We're saying that people can save. I'm saying save. No one's going home early, by the way. It's not like they're going to shorten your workday. You're going to just be able to do more. But people can save 4 hours in productivity time that would have been wasted before by using the collaboration and communication tools correctly. That's an increased saving, okay? So it's not like you save 4 hours per week from day one when Teams is launched. That's working at it, putting small things in place, using OneNote and Planner, adding things to your teams, etc. But that number, the interesting thing about 4 hours per work week, which was quite a nice thing to be able to do calculations on, 4 hours per work week for normal people, not like me or us on this call, I'm sure of it, is 10%, by the way, of your work week. And if you take 10%, because normally normal people work 40 hours a week, I'm saying normal people, not normal, but if you take 10% of your salary bill, now I know that is South African because it's difficult to kind of figure out what other countries do, but I did try and convert it. So I took a small company. These are the calculations that I do for companies. I took a small company of about 1,000 employees. I worked out average salaries and how many people would do what in that company and what would they earn. And I then went and I worked out what 4 hours a work week saving would be. So I'm saying saving because you actually achieve more. So you're more productive. It's not money back in your pocket. You're just more productive. And in South African rands, that's a lot of money. In a year's time for a small company of 1,000 users, it's 34 million ZAR, which is crazy money, okay? So ZAR doesn't mean much, most probably to you, but there you can see it's nearly 2 million US dollars or 1.8 million euros a year. So those small little things makes a big difference. And it's difficult to determine ROI because how do you count everything? How do you count every page, something that's not printed, a car that doesn't drive somewhere, but start with just your salaries and wages and start looking at productivity time that's being burnt up because we're not productive and our employees aren't enabled and they're on trained. So that's always a good exercise, I think, to do. So let's take a look next. I'm going to start chatting about change management, and I'll go through some of these. And then I'm definitely going to give some time for us to have a casual chat, okay? So I'm not going to try and push this right up until the end of 50 minutes. I'm quite happy to have an open conversation. And the nice thing is that we're on a Teams meeting. It's not a live event where you can't talk to me. So I'd love this to be an open discussion and we can actually have a chat and share some ideas and things. Because believe me, I've learned my best lessons from questions that people ask me. So I'm always very keen to see what people actually have to say and what they want to share with us. So when we talk about change management, let's start with an interesting one first. I'm first going to just take a sip of my cool drink because I talk way too much. So one momento. I promise you it is cool drink because it's still early in South Africa. That's not red wine, so I just want to make sure that you know that I'm having cool drink. But it could be red wine. For those who knows me, you'd never know. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is that I consider myself old in the tech industry, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm 45, and typically in companies, people of my age are already seen as the older generation. It's a fact, okay? So from 45, from 40, 45, you're seen as the miserable people who doesn't want to change, okay? So I just want to share an interesting thing with you regarding age groups, Okay, so I'm not going to try and put you into a box of millennials and Gen this and whatever. I don't want to do that. I want to share a concept with you, and it's about empathy. Okay, so for years I've been a trainer, and I've experienced that older people do struggle with learning. And I'm going to explain why. I don't mean this in a bad way at all. I want you to have empathy for it. And then I'm going to show you that we're actually rock stars, and that's why we're being difficult, okay? It's because we have so much magic powers, okay? But I've had people come up to me at conferences and say, oh, Tracy, Microsoft must just learn from Apple. You know, maybe if they were more intuitive with their software, we wouldn't have to train people. And I was like, what? What do you can't compare apples to Microsoft. I mean, what's that? But, and then I'll say to them, give me an example. Why do you tell me that our stuff's not intuitive and we have to train people? And they'll say, but you know, I've got a 2-year-old at home, little Sarah, and I can give Sarah my iPad, and within 2 seconds, Sarah can like use app and clicks on things and does things. The difference is Sarah's never worked on Windows XP, she's never worked on Vista, she's never worked on Windows 7. So if you give anyone new technology that's never worked on technology, they adopt it faster. Don't ever, ever forget that. So someone that's brand new to Windows or SharePoint or Teams will adopt it faster. When you're older, and it's not necessarily an age thing, I'm talking about a time spent with technology. So some of us, I started working when I was 14. So in tech years, I'm much older than 45, if that makes sense, okay? So it's not about how old you are, it's about the experience you have with the software or the technology. So anyone that's worked with more versions of something struggles to adopt a new version more. So if you've worked with, I don't know, like I said, Vista, let's cry about Vista, but XP and Vista and Windows 7 and Windows 8 and Windows 10, every time we add a new version, it's difficult for you because every time you learn something new, you build little neurological paths in your head to it. So your brain packs it and builds this little road to it. And okay, Trace, so this is how it's going to work. And this is the path you've got to follow. And then tomorrow I go like, okay, brain, nope, here is a new path to follow. So now do you understand why that's difficult? So someone who's never walked the road before, it's much easier to build that new path in your brain to that. So please have empathy for people that has more experience with technology, because we also bring a lot of business experience to the table. We have a lot of other added benefit, but we do learn different because your brain's got to unlearn those old methods first before it can learn new methods. I don't know if anyone on this call remembers the launch of Office 2007, but it nearly brought South Africa to its knees, okay? We had companies that couldn't work because suddenly our drop-down menus were gone and we had ribbons. You have no idea what an impact that had. And you'd think that's stupid. It's not stupid. I did support during that time. I supported a big company called Afgri, and people would phone me and say, Tracy, I don't know, where's my file, edit, view, print menu? They couldn't get it. So imagine the impact, because for years they had drop-down menus. Oh, and guess what? Ribbons are gone. We're going back to drop-down menus. So please have empathy for people that have more experience with technology. It's not necessarily an age thing. It's because of how much we know and how much we have to unlearn. Okay, so that's a big, big ask that I do have of you. Then the second thing that I want to remind you of is when it comes to change management, we have to change the way that we do support and that we work in IT. Because for years, IT was the police that said, why did you do that? Why did you click there? You're not supposed to do that. Why did you try and fix that on your own? Why did you break? Okay, so for years, we broke people down psychologically without even realizing it. I'm not blaming IT. I was IT, okay? I was there. But we just did it because our KPI said, find the problem, fix the problem. We never fixed people. You've got to realize this. This is a different thing. The era we live in today is about fixing people, not fixing problems. We have to teach people to fish. We've got to stop feeding them, okay? Because it's not scalable. So that whole, when someone phones and says someone's deleted my Excel, and you laugh because you know they just deleted their shortcut, in future, you have to tell the person, hey, Trace, just press the Windows button on your keyboard for me and search for Excel. Stop using shortcuts because it's slowing you down. The way that we do IT support, the way that we do training needs to change, people, because it's not scalable and it doesn't suit the way technology is today. So please understand, when it comes to change management, Those guys are at the forefront of it. I would put trainers into first-line IT support roles. That's it. That's where I would train my trainers, because the person who answers the phone needs to have empathy and needs to help you fix your own problems. So please, please look at those. Very important thing for me as well is that we've changed from Waterfall to Agile. You've got to stop following that methodology of ask questions, write documents, have meetings, test things, roll outs. Never going to work like that again. We are making changes on the fly. So you have to also realize that you have to allow time for failures. We're going to fail more and we're going to fail faster, but we're going to achieve faster. So that little OCD control freak thing that we've done for years, like the whole test case, and if it's not perfect, if you still follow that methodology, you're not going to achieve a lot in the new modern agile technologies. So the mindsets needs to be changed as well when it comes to our methodologies. Then very important for me, this actually makes me hungry now, doesn't it? Dessert, it's dessert time, people. So if I look at this, I think something that's very important for me in change management is transparency. So people need to know and understand what the ingredients is in the dessert. If they don't, and they never did before, remember, we kept them in the dark like mold mushrooms, okay? That's how we grew our end users and our technologies. But we have to change that to a point where I want them to know what is agile technologies. I want them to know what our failures and successes are. If there's any IT people on this call, you are welcome to take me on about not sharing your failures in the past, because no one ever did. And when I say IT, I'm actually talking about management, not just IT, okay? So I'm saying business versus the other side of the coin, okay? We never shared our failures. We would say that this weekend we're going to migrate from the file share to something else, and then over the weekend something falls over. Monday we're dead quiet, we're not saying a word. That needs to change. I want you to start going back to end users and saying, guys, we were going to launch this over the weekend, but we had some bandwidth issues. You know, we're going to try and adapt it. We'll try again on Friday. If you have questions, reach out. Because remember, IT, business, end users, this is a relationship, people. This is a marriage. If you don't have transparency and honesty between those partners, you'll never have buy-in and co-ownership. Ever. So no wonder we've been fighting a war against each other for years, because we've never been honest with each other. And it needs to change, because technology has changed and we haven't changed. So we have to share our failures and our successes, and share the ingredients, share with them what the roadmap is, the vision, the why, and that's how you're going to get co-ownership and responsibility in this as well. Also important for me as part of the change management, there's another one of my crazy graphics. I know I kind of overdo it, okay? I should have been a graffiti artist, I think. So if I look at this, it's very important to document your roadmaps. And this is something you're going to have to review every 3 months, by the way, for sure. You're going to have to tell your users, today, this is the decision that we're making, but we don't know what this roadmap is going to be in 3 months, because technology is advancing and changing every day. We cannot stick to the decisions we make in 3 months from now, okay? So we're going to review this on a regular basis, give you feedback and say, hey, so 3 months ago, we said that we want all your file share files to go to OneDrive, but Microsoft has just launched this other thing, which means we can now move it there. Keep on moving. Don't stick to a mistake or a decision just because you've made it already or you spent enough money and time to make it, okay? I've got dogs barking, sorry people, that's South Africa for you. So please remember to review your roadmaps and share it with users. Don't go write that 40 or 50 page horrible document which no one reads, because that just makes you look good and it adds no value. Draw pictures because people understand pictures. Then ADCAR is something that I always refer to, not because of a methodology thing, because I'm a bit of a kick against systems person, so I never liked these big words. I always said that the only difference between big words and small words but people is the font size, okay? So don't hang on those big words and think that it does anything, but some methodologies does work well for me. So ADCAR has just been one of those things that I've always stuck on, because for me it's important. People need to be aware of the need to change. You have to make them aware of why this change is good for them. And you have to make them excited about things. You have to give them the knowledge. So ADCAR is definitely a good approach to take when it comes to change management. And then for me, from a Kaizen or continuous improvement thing, these are small cycles. This is not year cycles anymore. Plan, do, check, act is small little cycles. It's a daily continuous improvement. It's a daily update. Don't do these long cycles anymore because then you can't improve. We have to shorten our review cycles. I used to keep it to 3 months, and I can promise you I'm at this point where I'm suggesting companies in their forums should do monthly reviews of the decisions they've made regarding technology. If we don't on a monthly basis do renews, then you're out of date, by the way. So please kind of adopt this for yourself. Don't go grab those fancy technologies because someone in a poster on Facebook said that this is the thing. Make it your own. Find that thing and rewrite it in your own language and make it your own. Don't be scared of change management, people. It's there to help you and to guide you, but it's not the end of the rules, okay? So make it your own, give it your own flavor, rewrite the story. It's only there as guidelines. So the rest of this is staying up to date. So do we want to quickly just go through a couple of questions? I know that I had some people that might wanted to share some things with me. The floor is open. Where's the lovely lady from Switzerland? I did have someone who wanted to share some things with me. There we go.
Hello. Hi, Tracy. Me again.
Hello.
So the question I had around rolling out the digital workplace. So we're in the process of rolling out Microsoft Teams, and we moved the timeline forward because of COVID. And so we're moving out of the pilot phase where 1/3 of our organization adopted it, and now moving into the scale-up phase where we're looking at the next 2/3. But what we're encountering is that there's that culture, the culture of busyness. Everybody thinks they're very, very busy and too busy to learn something new. Sort of what do you recommend around messaging for this to try and address that, especially considering that we're all working in a hybrid environment now? So
you're not going to like this answer, but then again, I'm not likable in the industry because I don't say things that people want to hear, okay? If I look at what we did in the past and how we failed, because believe me, I've not met a lot of people that had user adoption on technology in the past. We would get up on stages and look all fancy pants about it, but I knew their employees and I knew their people in their companies, and they didn't have. So whatever we did in the past failed. So for me, if you want different results, you have to do things differently, okay? So to answer that question of yours, what did we do in the past when it came to training, okay? Because that's not the people's fault, it's our fault. In the past, when it came to training, we said, hi, everyone, we're launching Teams. Here's a little place where you can find training material when you have time to look at it. We're going to do some non-compulsory training sessions, so feel free to join and enjoy us. And guess what? Nobody joined. No one joined. We've never made training compulsory in companies because we thought we wanted to leave it up to people to make decisions. And you know what happens when you do that? Nobody does training. So for me, when it comes to a company's vision to evolve, because this move to Microsoft Teams is not because someone's getting a kickback on Teams licenses, it's because we're making a good decision for our employees. We want to empower our employees, make their lives easier, save them time, have transparency, right? So this is something we're doing to actually help our employees. And if this is a vision that the company has, if the company says that our strategic objectives are to evolve, become agile, become a leader in the market, to be a thought leader, to learn every day. So let's say that's your company's strategic objectives. How is it that the job descriptions of people don't represent that and don't align with it? Because if you look at the job descriptions of employees, it's all transactional based. Capture 400 invoices a day, only pay 1/3 of the creditors or something, if that makes sense. So job descriptions and what we expect from employees is very seldom aligned to company strategic objectives. So the challenge that you have with this is that Teams rollout most probably aligns with strategic objectives, but what's expected from the user every day to earn his salary doesn't align with that. And for me, the long answer, because that's me verbal diarrhea about this, okay, because man, can I get upset about this. The short answer is, if we don't make training compulsory and include it as part of KPIs and their daily duties, they will not make time for it, they will not learn, because they are busy. So even though, remember, they're in a catch-22, that busier for being busy, that's like if you still write all your invoices by hand, okay, and the company's now bought a system that does electronic invoices, that person is so busy still writing 400 invoices by hand that he doesn't have time to learn how to do a digital invoice. So it's a catch-22. They are busy because their systems are old and their ways of thinking is old. So the company nearly needs to force stop it and say, stop. From today, 5% of your allocated time is to learn, to evolve, to help yourself achieve more. So that's a challenge that I'm seeing in the companies, because we're pushing it out and the people are busy. So whether they're being busy for being busy as the catch-22 and it's old habits, I don't blame them for it, because we've done that for the last 30 or 40 years. Does that, like, whole lot of information answer your small question? I'm so sorry.
Yes, no, thank you. That was really helpful.
Okay. So yeah, it's not the easy fix. The things that fixes things aren't the easy fixes. We have to do it the other way around. So I definitely have, and I've written a couple of blogs on that. I think it's on a slide up next as well that might be able to help you as to what I think those steps would be. I wrote a blog that said, who can we blame for users not adopting Office 365? And it's you. So that blog got me into a lot of trouble, but trouble's good because trouble gets reads, okay? So people woke up on that. So I definitely talk about that quite a lot, about the fact that we have to force people to learn. I'm sorry to say it. There's no, oh, would you like to do a course? It's never going to happen, okay? So I insist in companies, and here's another thing. Also, when companies gets me in to do Microsoft 365, I force their management and excos to get trained first. And boy, does that get me into a lot of trouble. Because normally they tell me that, oh no, Trace, we don't have time. I'm like, sweetie, if you don't have time, your employees are not going to have time either, because they're also super busy. So you have to lead by example. So when it comes to compulsory training, I start right at the top. Everyone's got to lead by example, but they don't like it. Believe me, they don't like it, but I do get incredible results. So that's a really cool thing. So any other questions on the change management side before I kind of just wrap up with a lot of cool resources, I think, for staying up to date and things like that? You're welcome to just speak up. So don't even worry about putting your hand up. Just speak up and say, hey, Trace, and I'll stop and we can have a chat. So if there's any questions, I'll quickly just wait for a couple of seconds. Is there anyone else who wanted to just chat with me? No. I know I've got a lot to say about everything. So I think firstly, people are normally scared to ask me questions because they'll ask a small question and then I give them a whole Bible full of answers that you didn't want. So it's the whole cupboard full of monsters, and that's just what I do. That's also why I work for myself, because I can't report to management because I'm too much of a, I'm what they call incorrigible. Okay, so you can't manage or train me. Okay, so let's talk about how to stay up to date. And these things are very important for your users. And I do think that this needs to be built into their KPIs. This needs to be physically present on their job descriptions. It needs to be measured. They need to be promoted via this methods as well. So if I think of learning, no one has time to sit in 4 days a year training anymore. We don't. Even though I force companies to do it because we've got to fix the problem. But if you take 5 minutes a day, by the way, for 5 days a week, that is the equivalent of 4 days a year. So imagine if we can change that culture where we say, we don't do that classroom thing. We're taking small changes every day. And every day I want you to take 5 minutes of your 8 hours and just go and say, what was there? Is there a new feature that I can try out? Is there something I can check, a little video quickly maybe? Is there a forum I can engage in? We have to change that culture, bring it back into bite sizes where, you know, people can keep on learning and learning every day, because then your evolution is much easier as well. So of course, as I mentioned, the name changes from Office 365 Pro Plus to it's now Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise or something fancy pants. Who knows where they got that? The next couple of pages is my top go-to resources that I check every day with my first cup of coffee. I don't smoke anymore, by the way. South Africa made smoking illegal and drinking illegal. So I just stopped smoking. I said, there's no way I'm going to buy some garbage black market cigarettes. So now in the mornings, I have my first cup of coffee without a cigarette and I check these things. So the first thing I check is what's new in Microsoft 365. So what is the latest releases that's happened? The second thing that I do check, and this is more technical though, I see I've got someone coming up on the camera, is the Microsoft 365 roadmap. So maybe not all your end users will check this, but I definitely want the champions to keep their eye on this, because this is where I see Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive, etc. Do I have a question there? Is it Ulrika? You came on video. Did you have a question? Nope. Okay, well, speak up. at any time. So the Microsoft 365 roadmap is important for me. The adoption tools is incredible. So go search for adoption resources Microsoft 365 and you'll find this awesome website, okay? Unbelievable resources in there. You don't have to create everything from scratch anymore, people. Like I said, you don't have to know everything. You just need to know everyone who does. And this is one of those places where you get to know those things. The Office 365 Training Center has incredible resources as well. So if you're a smaller enough company, you don't have a lot of resources internally, there's some incredible resources on this. I'm not putting URLs in there, people. Remember, this is recorded. Take a camera, take photos. I don't know, is the slides going to be shared as well, Knut, do you know?
Yeah, we're going to share them.
Okay, cool. So you can grab all of these things out of there. The SharePoint lookbook, people, holy cow, is that a sexy place to go and find inspiration of what you want in your SharePoint site. So definitely take a look at that as well. The Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways is incredible, okay? So I made in Afrikaans we say boo-boo, that's when you make a little mistake. I made a mistake last week. I did this massive blog where I said, oh my word, look at this cool new web part. It's called Links, so awesome. And then everyone started looking at me and frowning and going, what are you talking about, South African chick? And I'm like, what do you mean? This is cool new web part. And nope, it wasn't a cool new web part. I actually inherited that web part through the learning pathways and the crisis management templates that I deployed from the lookbook. So it actually grabbed a web part and brought it in, but it was a valuable lesson I had to learn, by the way. I was so confused about it. But the learning pathways is a template that you can deploy. Microsoft keeps the learning content pages up to date. You can modify and change it. You can add other content. So it's an incredible site that you can deploy inside of your tenant to help people to learn. Then in the Microsoft Teams adoption resources, so there's the URL, by the way. I don't know who's seen this flip book, okay, but it gives me goosebumps. It's so sexy, okay? It actually makes swoosh when you switch a page over, okay? So you can grab that URL and put it as a tab in Teams, and it can help people learn about Teams. It's got videos in there. It's got infographics in there. It's this book that you page through for people that are new to Teams. It's unbelievable. Okay. Next one, teamsdemo.office.com. I've got to give Alistair Pugin credit for this because boy, did I not know about this really simple to use, nice demo site. Go grab the URL. It's a click through. You can add it as a tab. Click, what does this do? Click, what does this do? Click, what does this do? Some people don't like the fancy pantlock videos and infographics. Some people want the faster click through thing. So it's an incredible tool that you can use for people to keep on learning. Then, of course, the Microsoft Tech community. I mean, we in the beginning, when the session started, we spoke about community. So here's your daily African word. So there's we've got 11 languages, by the way, in South Africa, and one of them is Bantu. And in Bantu, there's a word Ubuntu. And I'm not talking about the OS. Ubuntu means I am who I am because of who we all are, and that's exactly what community is, people. We are better together, so don't forget the importance of community. Sign up for Microsoft Tech Community. They've got an area there where they've got blogs for every product, and in those blog areas, you've got a monthly wrap-up roadmaps and what the new releases were. Such an incredible place to be part of. Microsoft people on there, MVPs on there, other rock stars on there, because believe me, it's not about whether you're Microsoft or MVP. Everyone's a rock star. Then also remember that in the apps and services, you have help and support and training these days as well. So that at the bottom, for example, is PowerPoint. So in Office Pro Plus or Microsoft 365 apps and whatever, there's help, there's training, there's feedbacks, there's sometimes the blogs that you can actually visit or requesting features and things. Then you can see it's in Power Automate as well, still flow there. In Teams as well. So look for those controls inside of the apps and services that you use to get training, to give feedback, and become part of the solution. Stop being part of the problem. If I meet another person that says to me, oh, I'm so sick and tired of this in Microsoft 365, and then I'm like, excuse me, where's your ticket that you logged? Because we have a right to change our futures when it comes to the technology that we use. So that's like not voting in your country and then complaining about the politics, okay? So go vote. Go vote for the things that you want, get other people to vote for it, and we can actually change these things together. Then also important for me, there is Ubuntu. I am who I am because of who we are. I'm a big Twitter fan. I know younger people tend to not like Twitter that much, but I learn on Twitter, okay? So Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, even whatever the MVPs, but there's a couple of the Twitter handles that you can definitely look out and follow for daily updates, which I think is an incredible thing. Then also, lastly, lots of information. There's some of the articles that I've written specific to user adoption that was a bit of game changers. I made a lot of trouble with writing those articles, but I want you to think different. If that's one thing that I do in the industry, is that I fight what everyone thinks is normal, because someone needs to fight the norm. I need to make people think different about the things they assume is correct. Okay, so I'm the perfect devil's advocate. I ruffle a lot of feathers. I make a lot of people upset. I can't say that I care. Okay, and sometimes if you've had a tough day, have a glass of red wine. It fixes a lot of things. Okay, so but don't be scared to stand up against the norm, because we need to do things different if we want different results. So there's just some articles that I've shared. And that kind of brings me to my closing. Okay, I've had a lot to say, and I know that in this 55 minutes, I've done an hour and a half talking with you. So that's why I talk so fast, so I can get more done. See, but the most important thing I want to say to you, and this I get into trouble for as well, is products don't fix problems. People fix problems with products. Don't ever forget that. You can't just buy something and your problems are fixed. If you don't invest in people to use those products and make amazing things, then you won't achieve anything. So don't blame products for not doing the thing that you thought it was going to do for you if you didn't enable and invest in the employees to be amazing with those products. And I think that kind of sums me up, by the way. I think I've said quite a lot. If we did mention, you can go on Twitter, use the hashtag #AskValoFest if you have questions. I'm there as well, but use that hashtag as well if you have any questions after this. Is there anyone who'd like to chat with me? We've got a couple of minutes, I think, and then we're kind of done, I think. Anyone? You see, everyone's scared of me now, Knut. That's what always happens. They go like, there's no way we're going to ask that chick a single thing.
Yeah,
Hi,
Mark is here.
Hi, Tracy. Hi, Mark here from Simply Communicate. Tracy, tell us what you think about Project Cortex. What do you think the implications going to be on that one as it starts to roll out through the rest of this year?
You're asking for
You
trouble.
have to that at me, Project Cortex? That's what you came up with? Gee whiz, the most difficult thing. Project Cortex. So, and I'm going to completely answer that with another answer, okay, or the other question. So it's called juxtaposing, when you kind of like translate something into something else. When machine learning and AI came into Office Pro Plus, because I'm going to go back to something that people know, because most people don't know Cortex yet, right? Or what this is about, or what the bigger picture is. But when PowerPoint came up with design ideas, I was like mad at Microsoft for like 3 months. I was like, I can do those things. I can draw those circles. I can put pictures on boxes. Who's this company to mess with my creativity? You know, it really made me mad, because I don't want something making decisions for me. I don't want PowerPoint deciding that it's going to be blue now because there was a soap bubble in my photo. And it took me a while to realize that, yes, I didn't do the 100% that I used to do, but I can now do 90% 10 times faster. So for me, Project Cortex and the way that AI and machine learning is starting to invest and bring things to us, and that's the discovery phase. So before, we used to put things where we can see it. Then we navigated to things. Then we started searching for things. And now we're in discovery phase where things are coming to us that we don't even know is there, okay? So that's the scary part, is trusting that technology, but also trusting the ability to know that the technology is not there to replace you. I love robots. I cannot wait for more robots to be there. All my computers that's here behind me, I've got a Surface Go, Surface Pro, Surface Laptop, MacBook. They're my little robots, okay? And they're there to replace and do the mundane tasks for me that I don't want to do anymore, because I want to be more human. I don't want to be more robot-like. I want to be more human. And the only way I can be more human, the only way I can be more innovative and creative and have time to, I don't know, to dream, is if robots do the mundane tasks for me. And that is a very long answer for me to answer what I think about Project Cortex. I cannot wait for the robots to do more for me so I can do more wine drinking in a field with flowers and be innovative. Does that answer it?
Thank you very much, Tracy. Yeah, I'll drink to that. Looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
All right, Tracy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your knowledge with us. I hope to see you like in a few hours for the happy hour. We will like mix some drinks and have some enjoyable talks together. And yeah,
How
if
many
anyone
hours
wants,
is that from now? How many
3
hours is
hours,
that?
3
3
hours from
hours.
now. Yeah.
I can drink in 3 hours. Game on.
Perfect. So thank you so
very
much. And
everyone.
yeah, and yeah, feel free to continue the talks with Tracy at our Twitter hashtag with Ask Valo Fest, and connect with her on LinkedIn or other type of social media. And thank you. And I hope we will meet each other soon, Tracy. So thank you for being part of this.
Absolutely will do. Cheers, everyone. Have an awesome day.
Yeah, cheers. Bye-bye. I will stop the recording now, and Gökhan, I think you will take over as a moderator.